ministry as well as CYO athletics and everything else our office does, and this beautiful, wonderful retreat center as well. I want to welcome you all back. Believe it or not, I'm going to try not to cry. We have missed you. I know you all missed each other. This has been, we all know it, right? There's nothing else I could say. We all know it, right? That's just all we can say. So much has happened to us, our families, everybody, friends. You know, it just seems like it's really been a tough time. Obviously, you know, pandemic, the global, everything. And then, of course, you know, many of our counties really got hit hard over the Ida storm. Many of you called and said your gyms are done, they're finished. The floors have all buckled, they're all pretty high. It looks more like a roller rink. So much we've been challenged with. So I want to welcome all of you here. This is a great turnout for this meeting, and we really, truly appreciate it. I'm just going to quickly just go around the room and introduce a few folks. Some of the counties may not have had a chance to meet the individual, but someone who works here in our office seasonally through September through June is Vic Pianese. He's our sports athletic coordinator as well. Vic has been in athletics a long time. He grew up, he's a Hudson County guy, got involved in sports right after high school like many of us, and it's just stuck. For the longest time he's been the coordinator for Corpus Christi, which he's now retiring from and passing off to the new young guys. But he's been around a long time, knows got a real good handle on athletics, and he's the comp guy among us all. So he's going to be handling all 4 counties as well in working with me. And then, of course, we have also with us tonight your county coordinators are all back, thank God. We have Rich DiLorenzo up here in the front. He handles Bergen County. So that's Rich. Dave Broadwell is in the back. He handled registration tonight. He's our Union County. And we have Raul, where is he? He handles Hudson County. Okay, and of course, Jerry O'Connor, he handles Essex County for us. Okay, a lot of great, all these individuals have long history in their counties and in CYO sports, and they're all very helpful to you. So they're here as well. I also want to thank Rich Donovan from our office. A lot of you guys know Rich. He's here tonight to help us. He's going to videotape and everything else, so Rich want to help. And in case the chef and his staff leaves, Chef, just want to thank you and Julio and Laura. Thanks for all the great food. Let's hear it for those guys. Okay. What I'd like to do is I'm going to start with a prayer. And then at the end of Amen, we'll just have a few moments of silence, because not only was the 2020 season a difficult season, so was the early part, the second half of 2019. A lot of folks who we love, we lost even before the pandemic, and many of you have lost so much as well. And so at the end of the Amen, we'll just have a few moments of prayer. So, hope you like my prayer that I picked. Dear God, I'm sorry, hold on. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Spirit. Amen. Even I'm under the videotape now. Dear God, as our athletes prepare for the upcoming season, let us put on the belt of justice and faithfulness. As coaches, let us be champions of the children we coach today. Let them see justice and kindness. Help our gym to be a place where all children feel welcome and included. Let it be a place where all children can meet without fear of being left out or bullied. Let our gym be a place that feels like home, where children look after each other like brothers and sisters and feel safe and encouraged. Let our gym be a place where our children grow strong and compete fearlessly like lions, but each with a warmth and acceptance like lambs. Amen. May God watch over all of what we've lost and hold them tightly in His kingdom. Thank you. Okay, gang. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions and have many concerns and wondering what's going to be next. and how it's all going to work. So tonight we just want to take some of your time to get to that point and hopefully fill in some questions that you may have and so forth. If we can, it'd be great if we could hold any kind of Q&A till the end. I'm sure there'll be some, but if you could just hold it off, let us get through some of the things we want to go over tonight. One very important thing that we wanted to gather all of you together about tonight was of where we are now. As of right now, we are green light to go. I encourage all of you. Volleyball is about to kick off. Volleyball will be starting. We're a little behind, but volleyball will be starting in all 4 counties next week. So those programs that are fielding teams, there are some programs, schools and parish programs, that have felt the need. Right now, they're just not ready. And we totally respect all those decisions they have to make. But we are trying to get it going. We have right now, we have the current blessing of the diocese to move forward, and carefully, but we also need to be prepared for the what if, and if we find ourselves in another similar situation, let's all pray and hope we don't. So what I do recommend coming out of tonight's meeting, if you haven't yet, I would certainly have a meeting with the parties involved that help make those decisions. You know, if there's a school, if you're a school program and you're running the program, you should definitely have that meeting with your principal. If you're a parish program with the school as well, then you need to have that discussion with both your pastor and your principal. You will be asked questions like, and just from a quick show of hands, no judgment, has anyone, for those that are just obviously here for basketball tonight, but if you run all the sports at your program, or it's just basketball, just with a show of hands, how many of you already had that conversation with the parties that need to make those decisions? Okay, that's pretty good. That's very good. So again, if you haven't, I would definitely have that conversation. And I'll be honest with you, some of you asked me tonight a very good question about how's it looking so far? How are things going? I'm not going to say that basketball is going to follow the same trend as volleyball. Cross country is kind of tough to measure. I don't know what the team rosters look like yet, so I can't tell you if overall their total participation is down by 100 or whatever. I don't have those numbers yet. But I can tell you from a volleyball standpoint, all 4 counties are not immune to, for some reason, we have a real lack of 5th and 6th grade girls teams. Now that may be something we were trending in your programs. Maybe it's been a couple of years since you even had any girls teams. And now you're just down to the last few. We seem really heavy on the varsity girls side for volleyball. There's, I know the numbers off the top of my head for the varsity in each of the counties, but they're hefty. There's a good at least 10 plus teams, if not even close to 20 in one particular county. So, but the JV division looks very small, all right? A lot of programs who would always have 5th and 6th grade girls volleyball are off. They don't even have a team, which is really rare and off. But it wasn't just that, it's all 4 counties are unfolding for that. So I share all this with you. That may not be the trend for basketball, but you guys, if you haven't even started registration yet, and you're getting ready to ramp it up, advertise it in the church bulletin, you put signs out on the lawn, if you've got a digital board at your parish or school, you're advertising it there, you're sending flyers home, if you're allowed to send flyers home at your school, or some schools do the take-home folder, which is online once a week at the school. Everybody does something different. I would start doing that as soon as possible. Try to mobilize your teams as soon as possible, so this way you have an idea of what you have. And where you're going to fall short, you may want to really make sure you ramp up your marketing to really encourage that turnout, okay? So that's just something I wanted to share with you. So, all right, so we're going to start with just some easy stuff at first, although it's not easy, I shouldn't have said it that way. Talking about COVID, it's not easy at all, but if we could start here, okay, so these, what you're going to see here below, are up here, is the, and this presentation, tonight we wanted you guys to focus, okay? That's why we have no handouts, no blue folders tonight. So this will be up on our website for you to be able to view after tonight. Everything you're going to see here tonight will be on the website for you to be able to download or copy or whatever else. So, if you haven't heard, Executive Order 253 went into effect on August 23rd. This is being implemented right now with volleyball and cross country. All coaches, at first, if you read the executive order, once you get past all the thereof and thereas and this and that, you get to the nuts and bolts of it. It originally came out, it doesn't actually specify a coach. It actually refers to like the electrician or the plumber. If they're coming only once, they would not have to provide any kind of testing to you because they're one and done. You're calling them for an emergency reason. We asked for clarification and we received it. You know, the old saying, careful what you ask. So we got the answer and we were told yes. All coaches, all sports, if the coach is even if the coach is only there once a week because he can only make practice, that's the only one he can make. He's an assistant coach, whatever the case may be. Anybody who you call coach must be either vaccinated or every week after October 18th, they must show you any negative test, whichever test they take. If you're going to ask, well, is it the PCR or what's the other one called? PCR, I think it's called. It doesn't matter, as long as it's a negative test, but they're going to have to do it every week. So if they give it to you on a Monday, every Monday you're going to need to get from that coach that negative test result if they're not vaccinated, okay? If you're vaccinated, you should definitely start collecting any of your coaches, get a photocopy of their passport card, and that shows that they're vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and of course they don't have to do anything else. As of right now, you know, with volleyball and cross country, that doesn't go into effect until the 18th, but they've been collecting it as well, and they're taking the necessary steps to make sure that they're doing it already anyhow before the 18th. So, and we've been told that if it's a school program, those copies should be placed on file with your principal. Most principals are saying, hey, give it to the nurse. That way they're all in. But again, check with your principal. And then we were told that the ones that where you were a parish program, where that's where all your stuff is funneled, all your paperwork and your banking and everything, then you should put that on file with the parish. I know you may get this, and you may go to the parish with this folder with all these things, and every week have to turn in a negative test result as well for those coaches. And somebody at the parish might say, what is this and why are you giving it to me? And why were you here last week for the same thing? Just say, look, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing, putting these on file, whether they want to put them somewhere, wherever they want to put them. We just need to make sure we do it. I cannot stress this enough. I know it's you get a lot of pushback. People may say, hey, another thing, I get all that, but this is coming, it's an executive order, and we really need to make sure we're following through. I know all of you are pretty much the program directors. You have a lot of stuff to do. You also do the shopping at Costco, BJ's, everything else. Worry about your snack stand, worry about the gym floor, worry about the gym getting set up, worry about everything. But unfortunately, this is what we need to do to keep everyone safe. And I can not stress enough, I would not want to be that program director if all of a sudden something happened and the principal says, or the pastor says, well, Tom Combo, he's a coach. I looked in the file, there's nothing here for him. And he didn't get it, and you just kind of let him slide, not that you would, but I know, we're lucky to even get any volunteers at all, right? But it's just something else that we need to do, okay? Okay. Vic? Okay. Some of the practice guidelines. Now, tonight, some of you have mentioned to me that you need to take stuff back to your principal. If need be, call me, because right now we're just giving out the practice guidelines. This is in place right now with volleyball. So if you're involved in volleyball, you're reading this for like the 10th time, right? So we've talked about this on the Zoom calls, okay? So this is what we've put together. Only coaches and players are allowed in the gym, okay? Some of the things that we're doing here, you have to understand, it's things that we're sharing with you is trying to make people feel better about how this is going to work and how we're going to do our diligence to make everybody safe, okay, as best as we possibly can, and we can all talk about the scenarios. Well, there's a 6th grade birthday party, they're all going. I understand, but when they're in our care, this is what we need to do. If we want to have sports, we need to make sure that we are dedicated to this. So, only coaches and players, and this should be good for you guys that are coaches. We all don't want the parents in there anyway. But only coaches and players are permitted at practice. Now, you may also get that one opportunity, or that one where it's necessary for the parent to be there because maybe the child needs care at a certain time or something like that, you need to make that judgment call. Don't call me and ask me, but I will say to you, if I find, if we get a phone call, you can't have 10 people on your roster and all 10 people have to have their parent there. So don't let it get used as an excuse. But if the parent does come to you and say it's a medical issue, you should already know that anyway, because if they filled out the forms, they would have identified that they have a medical issue for that reason. Okay, all coaches and players must always be wearing a mask. Only the players are permitted to remove or lower their mask. Some players, believe it or not, during the summer hoops that we had, which went over really well, they chose to leave their mask on. That's great, good for them. So again, that's really going to be the player is allowed to, if they wanted to, remove their mask if they choose to during drills or in the act of practice or on the court or on the course here. Well, we use this for cross country too, so sorry about that. We should have edited that part out. But if possible, try to keep your players socially distancing when they're not in the act of practice. All equipment for practice should always be sanitized prior to each use, and if feasible, periodically during practices. Players should be required to bring their own hand sanitizer. A lot of them already do it now. They bring that little bottle with them. It's like attached to their backpacks. Do not let your players share water bottles. I know lots of police going on in the gym, but don't let them share water bottles. If you have multiple teams within your program, please conduct separate practices and space out the practice times to avoid teams crossing over each other, okay? Once practice is concluded, coaches and players should leave the gymnasium, or in this case the field for cross country. Do not linger. Coaches, avoid huddling with your players. If you need to speak with your team as a group, please socially provide enough space. You know how we all like to get in, all right, hands in, everybody elbows, tippy toes, unfortunately we just need to, even at practice you like to get them at the end, just try to keep them socially distanced to the best of your ability, okay? And that's not 3 feet or 6 feet. If you're aware of it, right now in the state, there is no, unless it's being inputted by the owner of a business or something else, the governor has not reinstituted any type of social distancing, okay? Limit occupancy, you know how the girls or the basketball teams, so I keep thinking volleyball right now, one's got to go, well, 5 want to go, Are my knee pads straight? Am I good? Am I ready to go? Am I wearing my thing? They all like to do that, And of course, if the boys do it, they're just going in there to fool around and throw the toilet paper at the top of the ceiling, which then you have to scrape off at the end of the night. So try to avoid that from happening. During the practice, all coaches should always be alert, which I'm sure you will be. Some of you may have team apps that you already are asking them to tell you before they come to practice. If you have that, great, fantastic. It's a great thing to have. Or just, like they have to do today, just make sure when they come in, they should not be coming into practice. Encourage them. Listen, some players always say, I can't miss practice. I'll have to run if I miss practice. Well, we're in different times. Even I don't think I would make a kid run if he said, I didn't come, Mr. Convoy, because I wasn't feeling well. I'm glad you stayed home. You sure okay now? If you are, run around the outside of the school. But anyway, so let's make sure we're staying on top of that stuff. Okay, Vic? Is that okay. Preparing the facilities for practice. This is something that we didn't prepare the slide for you, but it's on our website right now. This is something that you're definitely, if you haven't met with your pastor or principal, I am sure, like, even if you're a parish program and your school has now been closed for some time, if there's a renter in there, a tenant and everything else, this is going to come really into play. I know that's for some of you out there, is what's going to happen when you're done. You're going to get hit with the question, maintenance guy goes home at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and the aftercare leaves. He sanitizes everything. What are you going to do now, So all of you need to be prepared, and your coaches are going to have to help. That the way to make them feel better and feel safe about everything, that it's good for the next day, if there's a school operating out of it or a tenant, whatever the case may be, is that you are re-sanitizing the facility. If not already in place, there are the minimum, these are the minimum recommended actions for your facilities. Signage is probably all over your gyms already, where there is an operating school or if there's a tenant, whatever the case may be, there should be signs everywhere. If there aren't any, go to the CDC website. You can print them out for free. Nice posters. Print them out in color, laminate them, you're good to go. Routine and frequent sanitizing and disinfecting, particularly the high-touch surface areas in accordance with the CDC. You know, that's like the doors that lead into the gym, you know, from the outside inside. Or leave them kickstand open if you can. I don't know about the outside, you know, as the weather starts to turn, that may not be something you want to do, but, you know, maybe that's just, you know, somebody's a volunteer's job or somebody who does that. I mean, these are just things that, you know, after tonight, you guys might, some of you might say, you know, I'm not even going to see the principal. We're not going to have basketball. But have hand sanitizer or disinfecting wipes ready, available at the entrances, exits, benches, and all other areas prone to gathering, high traffic, reduce crowding, and proper social distancing around entrances, exits, and other high traffic areas of the facility. At the conclusion of practice, the facility should be cleaned and prepped for its next use, especially if you're the last game of the weekend or of the night. So again, these are just points that we know have come up. We did have meetings, Zoom meetings with principals, and actually the principals actually met here, and I got some feedback from many of them when they were here at a meeting earlier in the month. Is there another piece of it? Okay. So that's that part. Something that's on the website I want to suggest to you is there is a company called Green Armor. And I know the people that are here in volleyball are going to say, I know. But we have no interest in this company. We get nothing from this company. It's a company that we were able to find during COVID. During COVID, again, the retreat center here could sleep up to 270 people. And we were actually able to stay open because it's a registered hotel in the state of New Jersey. But we did everything. I mean, we studied everything about sanitizing, all the different chemicals that are out there, things that are out there. On our website is only a suggestion. Actually, some of the people that are involved in our league, in our counties, actually own this company or are involved in this company that's been around for some time now. And they know all about it. They're coaches in various sports here as well in the CYO. We use it here, and it's a great product. We've had a lot of groups come here. A lot of high school groups have come here since the pandemic, and they said, this is a real compliment to the materials we use. We shared the materials that we use with them. Also to my maintenance staff, who does a phenomenal job. Some of those campus ministers told me they felt safer here than they did at their school. That's a real compliment to my maintenance people and to the sanitizing materials that we were using. So if you go to our website, not right now, but go tomorrow, whatever, they did put together a sports package where you can get if your school doesn't already have it, they may not want you to use theirs. You know, they may have the backpacks, and they look like a Ghostbuster, you know, going with the backpack. They may just have a hand one. You may find out they're just going around wiping doorknobs. You know, you'd have to check with your people in charge of maintenance and everything. But I would be prepared to speak to this, because I'm sure you principals, if not already, are going to ask that question. All right, because they need to make sure that the next day they're going to be okay to use the gymnasium. And with that, I am now going to turn it over to Vic for the real fun part of the meeting. Vic, I will pray for you. I will say something. I want you guys to know that what Vic's about to go over was a process that wasn't done just overnight or just done for the fun of it. When we broke from COVID, your county basketball coordinators got together, even met a few times when they felt comfortable enough to do it. But a lot was done through Zoom. A lot of note-taking was taken even before the meeting. They have listened to you. And what you're going to see tonight in adjustments that we've made in the rules is a reflection not of the current day. Now some of you may not, you know, again, I said it before, you may not be remembering, everyone looks like they're in a good mood still. I didn't put you to sleep yet, because we may have all forgotten what really had us mad in 2020 or 2019 when it came to sports and to basketball. But they have put a tremendous amount of work. This didn't happen overnight. It took several weeks. Took a couple of months, then they went back and looked at it again, then they looked at it again, they were looking at it again, then they spoke about it more, they Zoomed when they had to. So I just want you to know this wasn't just something that they threw together and see, well, tough luck, these are the rules. They really took a lot of your concerns. Every county is different. Every county has different styles, but this is something that's representative of everybody. And I really think that all four of them and Vic deserve a lot of credit for what they've done, because I know when I spoke with them, I'm like, oh, is that what it's gonna, yeah, Tom, this is what they're asking for. We want to really give them what they want to give them. And I said, okay, all right, let's see what happens. So please, Vic is going to cover all the parts of the rules that have been changed, right? Correct? Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tom. So you got my introduction already. I spent 25 years in Hudson County with St. Anne's Parish as a coach and program director. 25 then in Corpus Christi, in Hasbrook Heights, and I've now started my next 25 years here with Tom in Kearney. I hope I last that long. The slide. Okay. What Tom said is absolutely true. This is, I said, I've been doing this for 50 years. This is the most comprehensive review and change in the CYO rules that I have ever experienced. And I mean this when I say it. Everything this comes from all of you, your coaches and program directors. Every time that somebody complained about a rule, I had a notebook, I wrote it down. We had a board over and we wrote it on the board. I had 8 pages of little scribble notes at the end, and we went through every single one of them. And it's easy to say, hey, this rule doesn't work. The difficulty was in finding something that did, at least worked a lot better. And we also had to keep in mind, the objectives about CYO sports. So we balanced all of that, and I think we did actually a pretty good job of it. So a long process. The outcome, we modified a lot of the rules that just were not working. And I think I know you're off for a year and a half here, but you probably remember what a lot of those are. You'll see them tonight. We eliminated or modified rules that were unenforceable. Right? There were a lot of rules there that, we said it, but there was no meat behind it. There's no point in having a rule that we can't enforce. We modified those. And there were some things that were a little bit murky. So we clarified some areas that needed to be sharpened up a bit. In the end, are they perfect? No. But I think that you will all agree it is a vast improvement over what we had. I'm not here to debate them tonight. So I said we've been through this many, many times. So these are the rules for this season. We're always open to changes after that. There might be some changes due to COVID that we have to put in, but this is what we plan on going with. If you have any thoughts on clarification that we need to do, happy to entertain that. On the bottom, okay, and you'll see this on the rules. Rules are not subject to change, right, by any coach, program director, or official in any contest, even if there is agreement among all parties. Right, we can't let that happen. This is across all counties, and the classic one is going over the foul line, right? Well, he agreed, I agreed, therefore we're going to do it. We can't do that. All right, these are the rules we're expecting everybody to abide by. All right, so this is just a list. Now we're going to go through these. These are the rules that were impacted. I'm assuming that you know the base rules, right? So I'm not going to go here tonight and go through every rule. We'd be here for 3 hours. I'm going to go through the rules that changed. So if you're not familiar with the base rule, you should become familiar with it. I'll have to answer those questions afterward. But this is just changes. And the reason we're doing it now is that a lot of these changes will impact the way that you put your teams together for this season. And that's why it was important you understand them now, because we didn't want you to find out later, well, if I knew that, I would have done this or this differently. So that's why we're doing it now. We won't go through the list, but now we're going to hit these one by one. Now, I know Tom asked that we hold questions to the end. If you have something really burning about one of these rules, I'm happy to stop to do that, because it's going to be hard to go through what I think are 13 rule changes and then go back. But if you can hold to the end, that would be great. But something really, really important, let me know. Okay. I'm starting out easy, all right? So roster size. All right, minimum roster size is 7 players. You know, that's to avoid teams just not having enough and not showing up for games, which is what we have found in the past. However, we know there are going to be exceptional situations where a program just, that's all they can get. We will have exceptions to that, but that's going to be reviewed by the Assistant Director of Athletics, who of course doesn't exist right now, so it'll be Tom or I for now. But we're looking for 7 players on a roster. We've never had that before. All right, this is a big one for the counties that have the most teams. So in a county where the gender grade, 5th, 6th girls or whatever, are split into multiple divisions, we're going to division breakout a little bit differently. You might not even be aware of what the process was. The process in the past was everybody sent in to us, I'm an A, B, or C, or a D. All right, I think at the bottom I put improperly evaluating, and that's in quotes because we all know how that evaluation went. Right? Sometimes you hadn't even seen the teams yet, so you were making a guess. Sometimes you said, well, I know Sacred Heart was really good last year, and they're going to be really good this year. I'm going to make myself a B. All right? And there was just a lot of inconsistency around it. Some intentional, some not. We have to get beyond that. So this is the way we're going to work it going forward. So we're going to start this year starting with a CYO list. So we're going to have, before we get evaluation from you, we're going to have some pre-seeding. And that's going to be based on your record in that division in the prior year. It's going to be based on the record for that grade, in the younger division from 2 years ago. See the progression of the teams, and also the age grade composition of your team. So this is going to work on the expectation that older children are going to be more talented than younger. Therefore, if I have a 7th and 8th grade division, and I have a 7th grade team and an 8th grade team, typically the 8th grade team is going to be stronger. All right? That's the starting point. So we're going to have that starting point. We're going to continue to ask you to rank your teams. But instead of starting with your ranking, we're going to start with this. So we're going to start with this. We're going to work with your list. So if you say, hey, I'm a top 10% team, you're going to land up in the American division. Right? That will happen no matter how our ranking worked out, because, hey, you're down here, you think you should be up, we're going to move you up. So it's going to be a bubble where we're going to start at the bottom and keep that going. And at the end, we're going to have a ranking that's going to, again, start with the predetermined list and then be modified, but taking into account what you believe the strengths and weaknesses of your squads are. So basically, if you are deemed a top team, the only way you're going to move down is if another team believes that they should be moved up, and that's how the bubbling will work. It's not very different than things happened before. If everybody submits their evaluations properly and get it right, we'll end up with perfect divisions, just like we would have in the other process. Except now, rather than always working on what you said first, we're taking some of this other concrete stuff into account. I think make it a much more transparent process. Limit of 2 teams from any program in a division, and we will also ask you as part of your evaluation, because it very well may be that if we have 2 St. Mary's teams, 5th and 6th grade girls, they may land in the same division. We're going to ask you if you would prefer that did not happen. If that is the case, we're going to ask you which one should be moved up, and we'll move one up. Okay? This is a big one. Again, it doesn't impact all of the counties. I think this will work. It'll take some of the pressure off of us in trying to figure out how many AAU players you had, how many returning players, and try to factor all that into divisions. Again, much more concrete way of doing things. Can we have situations where, my team was really good last year, this year they're not going to be so great? Well, are they going to be penalized because last year's team was up there? Yeah, that's going to happen. And again, that happened in other years as well. Now I think it'll equalize the playing field a bit, and we're going to give this a try. Okay, next. All right, temporary players. We have not allowed that for a long time, actually, well, since we've reinvented CYO. But we are going to allow you, and this is to avoid forfeits, at the discretion of the program director. So it's a program director's call. A team may add a temporary player. Temporary means for a single game, all right, to a roster from another team in that program to avoid a forfeit. So if I have a 7th and 8th grade team, I don't have enough for a game, I can borrow a player from another 7th, 8th grade team in my program, or from a 5th and 6th grade team in my program. Now, if you only have one team and you don't have, it limits your flexibility. But a lot of programs are asking for this for the last couple of years. 5th and 6th, you can get from another 5th and 6th, or from 3rd and 4th. 3rd and 4th, obviously, only from another 3rd and 4th team. This does not mean girls can play on boys and boys on girls teams, right? You still need to qualify for that league. This does not require any pre-approval from the CYO. You don't have to call Tom or I and say, hey, I'm going to do this. It's a program director's prerogative. What will happen is that the coach will inform the other coach that I'm using a temporary player. The game will be played normally, right? The kids don't need to know anything. We want them to play. That's what's most important. This will go down as a loss, right? I guess that's really important for the team using the temporary player. But it will not be a forfeit. And we know the rules, right? If you have more than one forfeit, you're out of the playoffs. We want to avoid penalizing anybody for that. So that's the negative. So somebody asked me, well, people are going to do that all the time. I don't think so. Because if you use a temporary player all the time, you're going to have a lot of losses on your record. I don't think anybody wants that. So I think the penalty in it will minimize its use. But when you get down to it, if you don't have enough players, you're going to avoid a forfeit and a loss. Here you just take the loss, and most important, right, the kids get to play on both teams. Nobody's disappointed. Next. Yeah, question.
On the temporary player, is it, for example, if you have 5 fifth and 6th players who could potentially play up in the 7th and 8th grade, is it the 7th and 8th grade team could only borrow a player one time with one game that season, or can there be a different kid from the 5th and 6th grade team playing up?
Right, understand.
You want
Yes.
to
Yeah. That's when I say for one game only, it means you don't have a permanent temporary player that's there for the season. So if you need it on a game-by-game basis, you can utilize one player, a different player, doesn't matter. Again, I think the fact that you're taking a loss as a result of it is going to limit the use only when you actually have to do it to avoid a forfeit. Okay? All right, scheduling, rescheduling, I should say. Scheduling is bad enough. Rescheduling is a nightmare. That despite all of our efforts to control it, gets totally out of control all the time. We have, teams that show up, the other team doesn't show, the officials aren't there because they told them they're going to be somewhere else, because there's a million reasons of why games get rescheduled, and we need absolutely to get control over that. So we're putting the onus, really as it always has been, on the county coordinators will monitor all rescheduling of games and responsible for informing officials. So it's not going to be, hey, I need to reschedule my game. I'm going to call, Sacred Heart and talk to them over there. Or we're going to agree on something that we're going to tell the officials. That doesn't work. Right? It just, as much as we'd like to think it does, it doesn't work. So changes are going to go through the lead county coordinator. A couple of things. Let's talk about weather issues. Weather issues will work as we always did. Right? That's an agreement between the two teams that it doesn't make sense to play a game, and you're going to look for mutual time to try to reschedule. We will not, because we've had the situation. We get into February and the weather gets bad. So what if it snows? What are we going to? Well, last 2 weeks, if we get a weather cancellation, the game is not going to be played. Right? It's just going to be a game not played on your schedule. We're not going to attempt to try to reschedule all of those. We're going to ask program directors to keep the last 3 days of the season open, so don't schedule any games a week at the scheduling night, that last Friday, Saturday, Sunday of February. keep those open for weather reschedules, any reschedules for other reasons, so that we know we always have a window in there that we can utilize. At the end, we get so bogged down in trying to get all of this stuff in, it becomes very difficult, and then that holds us up in establishing the seeds for the playoffs and communicating playoffs to you. So hopefully this will alleviate a bit of that. Non-weather related, we said all rescheduled games that are not weather related will require approval from the league coordinator before it's initiated. So you don't do this after you've already called the other program or after you've called the officials. This goes to the league coordinator, and we expect this to be minimal. We're helping you out a bit with the temporary players and be able to use that, and at least from what I'm told, we were told, is if a lot of programs had that, they would not have forfeited any games. So we think that should take a lot of the forfeits off the table. And this is not a change. The only reasons for a reschedule should be unavailability of the host site, for whatever the reason is, or the inability to field 5 players due to a school or parish event. I didn't say your 5 best players. I can't field a team because I have a scheduled event in my parish or school that is taking precedence. If you plan accordingly and you plan up in front in working with the schedules of your parish and your school, this should be minimal, these issues. You know, the pocketbook bingo doesn't come up with 2 days notice. We know that those things are on the schedule, on the calendar early on, but we know that exceptional things will happen, and that's what this is here for. We will assess a financial penalty now, depending on when you reschedule, anytime that happens. Again, I urge you to plan ahead, and there are extenuating circumstances. We're not completely heartless here. There's tragedies in the school. We had coaches whose parents got ill or passed away. There are going to be reasons why we have to reschedule. But again, we're guessing the league coordinator will have the opportunity to do that, waive fees, and reschedule games if those exceptional things happen. Yeah, Diane.
How does if a kid is symptomatic prior to the game, how is this going to fit into here? If we can't field the team, if say
COVID, is it COVID you're talking about?
COVID, if they're symptomatic, things like that, if they have cancer, if they're feeling under the weather, we're telling them not to show up. How are we going to deal with that?
So you're talking, Di, about a child who shows up at the game and says, I don't feel well?
No, they call up an hour
Ahead of time.
before.
And they
say there's 2 of them who can't come.
because they don't feel well.
Exactly.
We don't know yet if they've got COVID.
Exactly.
We're going to cancel. We're going to cancel. That game gets canceled.
So then that wouldn't fall on the...
No, because, especially if during this particular time, obviously obviously you're going to tell them too, hey, if you're not feeling well, your parents should take you to go get a test. Because especially if it's during the week, the next day is school day. If they go to the parish school or whatever the case, they're going to need to go get that taken. Or you can actually say to them, well, you can't come back to the team until you get a negative test.
Is that written down somewhere? Or
Yeah, well, tonight we didn't provide that, but that is what's happening now even at the schools. The child's not feeling well, the principal is telling them, you can't come back till you have a negative test. So that would be I'm telling you, that would be something you should do now. Even our volleyball people are doing that.
So that's a parish policy, or?
No, it's not a policy, well,
We have to make that?
well, right now, why would you if 2 kids told you they aren't feeling well, or a child isn't feeling well?
I understand that. I'm just saying, if a parent says to me, I don't want to get my kid tested, then can I say, you have to get that kid tested before she comes back, or he comes back?
I
I'm
can
just playing
Yeah, I know.
what
Yeah.
we hear all the time.
We will, I'll get you an answer.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll share with everybody.
There was another question? Yeah.
You're saying up here that if whatever the reason is, you can't field 5 players. If I can field 5 players, is it a loss?
If you can field 5 players, it's a game. No.
Well, then why is that different? Because if I can field 5 players and I bring in 2 temporaries, it's a loss for me.
If you have 5 players, you don't need 2 temporaries, right?
Well, but if I need 7 players, minimum right?
No, the minimum, that's the minimum roster size submitted to the CYO. You only need 5 players to start a game. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay?
Okay.
And that's why we want to make sure that if you had 5 roster players, you go to the game with those 5, because you could finish a game with 2 players. We've seen it happen, right, Rich? We're just down to 2 players, 2 on 5. We hope that doesn't happen. But usually when you're, especially if you lose 1 player, let's face it, the refs usually loosen up because they already saw that you already lost down a player. You just can't go there and go pick 2 more. This was just so when you only have 4, you then could pick up 2 more players, or a player, just 1, you get 5. But it's still going to be a loss.
Now, we went through a few changes. Okay, good. Yeah, question. I was going to say, do we have any questions on the ones we covered so far?
Just school events that are listed, is it any school or just Catholic?
That's a good question.
What was the question?
If an event, is that the parish school event, or is that it could be a public school event? I will tell you, we've never put it in the rule, but a good example is the DARE programs, right? We'll have 5th and 6th DARE. The public school has a DARE program. They schedule it in with 3 weeks notice, and it's on the night of a basketball game. I can't field the team. I have used that as that's a legitimate reason for a reschedule. So it's a school event, that the kids are obligated to attend. It could be school, CCD, or the parish school. Question?
Not really a question,
Yeah.
but a comment on what you said. I'm a principal, and I feel like the coaches have the same right to call the local board of health for the area recommendations. So I think that if somebody is sick, you can call the board of health and say the recommendations for our town right now are this and this.
That's correct. If it's a negative, if it's a positive test result. If the child came down with COVID and was tested and got COVID, they tell you, I got COVID. You're going to need to call your local board of health and notify your pastor and your principal that you've now just been told by a parent. That's automatic right now. That's happening right now. So this is a case where you may have a child that says, I'm not coming to practice tonight. I can't come to the game tonight. I don't feel well. Well, let's all pray and hope it's not COVID. It could be anything else. I ate too many buffalo wings at a meeting. I don't feel good. Then you may want to call the Kearney Board of Health if maybe something happened, especially the shrimp that came out of the Passaic River. But you know what I'm saying today, only if that child indicated to you that it's I have it, which we had, if you guys remember, during the basketball season in the playoffs up in Bergen, there was a case, and right away we had to notify the teams that were there. We had to notify one of the refs who got tested early on, just before we broke before that day in March. Then everybody was notified. That's when the local board of health takes over.
Right, and they're open to help anyway, so I'm sure
Yeah.
any organization, so if you call
Oh,
in
yeah.
with like a query of, I have somebody who has symptoms and what do you recommend, they're very helpful.
Right.
Question?
Yeah, I assume it, like, for example, a whole team comes out last and don't have questions.
That would be an extenuating circumstance, yes.
So you just kind of have to just leave.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you need to understand, I mean, if you guys who are program directors know, I mean, I was a program director, when I had a coach call me and tell me, we're canceling the game for Friday, it just spins into, it's a horror, right? Particularly now with limited gym time, to try to contact the official, call the other team, find a mutually acceptable date, go back to your pastor or principal for time in the school, it's a bad thing. And if it happened only once or twice, but in a lot of counties, this has become kind of, well, I can't get enough, I'll just call and I'll reschedule. It's a mess, and it's a mess for the officials who, remember, plan their schedules around doing high school games around this. So when we cancel, it's a game that they could have done somewhere else. So out of respect for everybody involved, we're really trying to clamp down on this. Question?
Do you have a child that comes down with COVID? Are you quarantining the team? Or just that player? So you have a team, 5-10 roster, they're all practicing, that child comes down with COVID. What are we doing with the team?
You're going to have to, we're gonna have to quarantine the team. Because we don't know how long into it that they've had it. You know, they might have had it 3 days prior, and they weren't feeling any symptoms yet. I'm just guessing here, and, you know, you might have had practice twice, or practice in a game. You know, a great website to go, to get some of these questions that you're asking for the exact thing is the New Jersey Department of Health, NJDOH. Every question's up. You can actually type in the question. What do I do if my kid on my baseball team or soccer team, whatever, my sports team doesn't feel well? I don't know what it is though. You know, the answer will come right up with what they think you should do.
So this is the question. You're quarantining that team. You've had a game already with another team. That coordinator needs to be quarantined.
And the process begins.
Okay.
Let's pray and hope that doesn't happen. I don't want to put him on the spot, but somebody who knows every inch of every rule, believe it or not, of COVID, and maybe he doesn't like I say that, but Rich Donovan is with us this evening. And Rich just ran a very successful camp here. We had CYO camp. Over 400 plus kids were here for 8 weeks. We did experience two episodes, unfortunately. In one case, it was with the 12-year-old group, which some of the children were actually vaccinated. They were able to come back the next day. Some of the 12-year-olds. So we just, I don't want to use the word lucky, but it was that bracket first, so call it what you like. So some of the kids were able to come back. But within less than 5 days, right, Rich? Less than 5 days.
Well, it really depends on at the time what the ranking of the state is. Right now, we're all on high, so it's 10 to 14 days quarantine. Now, during the summer, we were a level below, so it was 7 to 10. It really depends, and if your county might be different. Like Union for a while was less than Bergen and Hudson, so it could be different for counties. But if you're playing with your JV, maybe your JV and some of your varsities, if they're vaccinated, then it's 24 hours watching their symptoms. You know, they don't have to quarantine. It's just they have to watch their symptoms. If it's underneath, then it's close contact. So unless it's 10 to 15 minutes within 6 feet constant. So if they're sitting on the bench, that's a quarantine issue. But if they're playing in a game and they were never in the game, they might not have to they might just have to watch their symptoms. So it's really a discussion with your local board of health to see, they're going to tell you what your area is, and then it really is going to have to be going back from the contact tracing of when did the kid get it, when was he symptomatic, when did he go to the doctor, and then it goes from there. So it's really a conversation with the parent to find out when it is and kind of go from there. The biggest thing though is to make sure with all this, just throw out, which I'm sure you all know, is, you know, regarding medical and HEPA and stuff like that, you can't say like, number 22 on my team got COVID. So you just have to say that a player on my team tested positive. And you want to make sure you're not even really, you can't even say that, you can't even tell your own team that Joey or Michelle got it. You just have to say that a player on our team tested positive.
Okay? All right, again, last word on this. Out of control. The key to this is planning, right? Before you make your schedule. Again, you know, what I always did, I talked to the pastor, I talked to the homeschool association, the principal, even the principals of the public schools to see what was going on and try and schedule accordingly. You can do it, like I said, they pretty much know their schedules several months in advance, and if you take advantage of that, you can avoid a problem here. Any other questions before we go further? All right. We all play a role. This is a great one. Probably, I think we spent hours going back and forth on this, and here's what we've come out on. You know, we're not giving up all play. You know, I talked about balancing the objectives of CYO, and one of the premises of CYO is that everybody participates, and this is a core rule as part of that. But we know what was happening with all play. Right? Some people were very good at doing it, some were not so great at doing it. It became an administrative hassle trying to track it, and then teams with big teams said, hey, you know, I have to play everybody a quarter, the guy who only has 6 is doing the same, not fair. So this is what we've come up with, and I think it's took the best ideas of all the things that we had. So here's the way it'll work. the first and the third quarters of a game will be designated as all play periods. So it's just the first quarter and the third quarter. There'll be a stoppage of play and not an extra set. We're not going to blow the whistle if it's an 8-minute quarter. We're not going to blow the whistle at 4 minutes and say, okay, we're going to stop everything in timeout. It's going to be naturally at the first dead ball that occurs within 15 seconds of halfway through the period. So it'll be a natural whistle. That'll be at the point in time where you're going to do your all play substitutions. Now, based on the number of eligible players that you have for that game, not on your roster, that are there for that game. It's going to be a minimum and maximum number of half periods that these players will play in those all-play periods. And you can see if it's less than 7, well, the expectation is that they play 3 of those half periods. So that's more than the quarter that we had before. If it's from 7 to 10, it's going to be 2. If you have more than 10 players, it'll be half a period. So in an 8-minute quarter, instead of an 8-minute all-play requirement, it now becomes a 4-minute all-play requirement. No substitutions, no other substitutions in the first and third period, except for an injury. So, somebody says, well, somebody got 2 fouls, I want to get them out. You can't. Okay, they need to stay in there. Once we start giving some flexibility, well, people are going to stretch that and start pulling players out, and we're going to lose the control that we're trying to establish here. So you can't do that in the first and third period. However, in the second and the fourth period, it's free play. There are no minimum requirements, no maximum requirements. You can do whatever you want as a coach. So for half of the game, you're bound by all play. The other half of it, you do as you please. The way this will be administered, and it is not that overbearing. All right, the scorekeepers will agree, as they should anyway, before every game, on who the eligible players are for that game. So that everybody's on the roster in the scorebook. You're going to notate the players that are there and playing for that game. And the scorekeeper will, if everybody's scorebook has that 1, 2, 3, and 4, the period for the 4 quarters up in the left-hand corner of the scorebook next to a name. Right? When players go in the beginning of the game, it's ///// the 5 players that are going in. At the midway point, the next 5 or 3, however the substitution works, they're going to mark that as well, and they're going to do the same in the third quarter. All right? So just like you check fouls, you check score, 2 scorekeepers, they're going to confer. The expectation is that by the end of the third quarter, right, everybody will have played their minimum time. If for any reason, right, that did not happen, and it shouldn't, right, if you stay on top of it, then the requirement is that player play their all player requirement starting in the beginning of the fourth quarter until it's complete. Okay? Any questions on that? I know this is a big change. It's been a big problem, and I'm hoping this resolves our problem. Yeah, Bob. We talked about second. We're doing first and second. We decided first and third, basically only so it didn't get to a situation where I get all my players in the first half, and the second half they're sitting on the bench. So we're getting engagement in both quarters by both halves by players. That was really it. It didn't matter. Yeah.
Here's the thing, Ken, if you come late, he's not there since the second quarter.
Yeah.
He comes in and he's a player that I can play impact quarter. Because now in the middle of the game, okay, this does happen. You come late because you're on the track, you're going from here to there. That's kind of, I wouldn't say you getting head coach, and that's really kind of, that or is not.
Yeah. Rich, what's the rule with players that come in late? They have to be in the book, right?
They have to be in the book.
Right.
Yeah, they have to be in the book. Not the book.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're going to agree who the eligible players are before the game. If there's somebody coming late, then you need to note that, and when they get there in the second quarter, then they're going to have to do their play in the third quarter. I mean, I think it works. Yeah. Sure. So there's a minimum and a max, all right? So we're saying let's talk about minimum for now, because that's what we're used to, right? Everyone has to play at least, a quarter. So if you have less than 7 players, they have to play 3 half periods. And if you do the math, right, you come up with this, right? If you have 7 to 10 players, the old rule, it's like the old rule, right? You have to play 2 quarters, but now it's only in the first and third quarter. You have to satisfy it in the first and third quarter. If you have more than 10, and this was the complaint we had. I have 15 players. So what were teams doing? We heard teams were cutting players and not having them on the team, which is really bad. And we're talking about CYO objectives. Or we're telling kids to stay home, and rotate. Well, you come this week, you come this week. We don't want that. So we've changed the rule. So if you have more than 10, everybody plays, but they only have to play 1 segment, 1 half a period, instead of 2. Yeah.
Just clarity, if I have more than 10 players, no player in the third quarter, 2 half periods.
In the first and third period, right? And think about it. And, we never had that before. But you've got 10 players, 1 player that's really, really good. Well, I'm going to have my really, really good player play all of that first and third period. Well, we're not allowing that, right? That's clearly not the intent. Is that you have your superstar is going to play that whole time. So again, based on the number, if you only have less than 7 players, again, if you do the math, somebody has to play all 4 those full periods. So that's why we have it in there. Yeah, Chris.
We're all running into challenges, given everything that Tom walked us through with COVID.
Yeah.
We're all facing challenges trying to recruit coaches in this environment. I'm going to take a first-year coach and ask them to do this in a game. And I'm going to ask them to find a way to tell the best player on the team. There's something to be said for having the best player on the team playing with some other people who are getting into the game to balance it out and keep people in the game. We could all make the argument that we have 3 valid strategies. I can't see myself sitting down with a first-year coach of a mom, with her daughter in the 3rd grade and saying, "You have to manage this." I mean, this is like.
Oh, we had an all-play rule before, right? And the fact that people didn't manage it well, right? And they didn't, right? Because I didn't know. That's why we have to tighten up the rule, because people were not doing it conscientiously. They were throwing a kid in for 30 seconds in the beginning, and let me put him in 30 seconds more here. You're done. All right, that didn't work, and I'm not doubting any individual coach's intentions on what they're trying to do, but what we're trying to do is stop the abuse, and I think that's the right word, that has happened over the years with this rule, and the difficulty that large squads had in getting their players in there to play. So that's the expectation. Yeah, Eric.
Just clarification, for the max play seated, that's only referring to those first and third quarters.
Yeah.
A kid can play half.
Absolutely. The second and fourth quarter, we're not espousing that kids never get in other than their minimum play. But yes, you could play your best 5 players for the entire second and fourth quarter, and for 2, 3, or 4 half periods in the first and third. So yeah, second and fourth is wide open. Again, what we heard from coaches is, instead of having the pain over the entire game of having to manage this, we're now concentrating it in the first and third quarter. So the second period you do as you please, and the fourth quarter, when it gets, competitive, you as a coach can do whatever you think is right in terms of substitution. That's the intent here. Yeah.
So what's the penalty?
I don't have the penalty on here, and it is in the book. It's forfeiture of the game. All right? But again, if the scorekeepers are keeping track of this, at the end of the third quarter, you know whether it has been achieved or not. And if it has not, it needs to be achieved in the fourth quarter. So there should be no reason for there to be a penalty unless somebody says, "I'm not doing it," and then that's going to be incumbent on the coach to let us know, and it'll be a forfeit.
Because the first week example is that if one good player said, "I'm going to be late," they put him on to the scoreboard. Doesn't show up. That kid did not play in the game. That rule is broken. So do they automatically get a forfeit for putting the player on the scoreboard and not having to play?
By the halfway, your scorekeeper should be talking anyways, because.
No, they do, but they'll say,
Yeah,
this
but
kid
if
will be
his
going
players
home late.
if his players don't arrive, your scorekeeper is already talking, they should be talking about fouls, first of all, because I see a lot
Yeah.
of that happening during games. They should be talking about that, so when they don't arrive, you should be saying, hey, they just never showed up, so that way they're crossed off, and you have, like, avoided that.
Yeah, you're not gonna, if you have a roster of 12 players, and I always put all my players in the book, always. You never know who's gonna show up or anything. But if I only have 5, the other team, I didn't break the all-play rule, I only had 5. The other kids didn't show up, I don't know where they are, but they didn't show up. No, you're not gonna be penalized for that. You know. I just want to say one quick thing on this, because it does come up year after year since this has been in play. So if you have, for any reasons that you may have your own program rules, for example, showing up late to games, next game you're benched, you're not playing, a kid gets hurt, whatever the case may be, that you have, and you have your own particular rules, kid's not doing good in school, whatever, or whatever the case may be, that you now are not letting them play. But you're not going to penalize them because they should still be part of a team and still come to the game and still cheer on their teammates. Make sure that player that comes, or if they're hurt, whatever the case may be, that they're not dressed ready to go, with the paint on, the headbands, wristbands, and ready to go, and is in the warm-up line. Because that's going to be, and wearing full jersey, everything, that child is ready to play. That child, for that particular reason. You tell me you're going to wear your game jersey, sure, wear a t-shirt underneath it, whatever else, but wear sweatpants or the pajama sweatpants they all like to wear and their stuff, so they don't look like they're ready to, like they can still sit on the bench, but they can't look like they're ready to play. Okay? So always make sure you tell them to wear sweatpants, something else.
All right, one more question on all play. I got to move on. We can go back at the end. I just don't want to keep you guys here forever. Go ahead.
Yeah, just who is the home book the one that counts? If there's a discrepancy, like a score, foul?
It's the way it is with fouls. Again, what I'm asking is that your scorekeepers need to confer. And if scorekeepers confer, there never will be an issue. Right? And this is a lot easier than, you might miss a foul that was called. Remember, at the beginning of the game, 5 players are going to go in. I'm going to mark it all. At halfway point, I'm going to mark it off. I only have to do this 4 times. And it's not like the role play before. People were, I went in for 2 minutes here, the people were, oh my God, the complicated ways people were going about this. This is at 4 substitution points during the game, beginning of the first, halfway through the first, beginning of the third, halfway through the third. It's making a check in the book that this player went in. That's it. To me, that's a heck of a lot easier than anything I saw before. And if you had something easier, you probably weren't doing the all play rule. You just couldn't be.
Just a little additional note on that with the checks off. Believe it or not, during the playoffs in 2020 there in the winter, depending on the host site, I know Jerry O'Connor did it, I think Dave did, some other place did, I know Vic was keeping track. They were doing the check marks. We have the host sites all scattered all over the place. They were just doing the check marks and making sure everybody was on pace. So they've already kind of tried it out. That's all I'm going to say.
There's a million, I know we can come up with a circumstance where, oh my God, this doesn't work. I get that. But in 99% of the cases, this works. If we want to, I don't want to go through any more exceptions now, but I'm happy to talk about them. This is the way that we're going. Again, I think this is a lot easier to administer than the old way, and I like the flexibility for as a coach. Second, fourth quarter, you do what you like, especially at the end of the game. All right. And then again, the intent is not, well, these kids are not going to play anymore, but it gives you the flexibility as a coach to do what is right based on the game circumstance, rather than, I got 2 minutes left, I didn't put this kid in yet, I have to do it. That kid doesn't want to go in the game at that point either. So you're getting this out of the way by the end of the third quarter. Yeah, Rich.
I just want to share with everybody too. This point is how we manage the game. When you're making your substitutions, as an official, I see a lot of coaches throwing kids in right from the bench. This is where you need to send your players to the table. They check in, old scorekeepers mark the books when the changes are going to happen. That way we keep track of everything fair and square. We don't have a hockey style off the bench onto the field, onto the court. We need to follow that strategy. That will eliminate all the guesswork. Trust me, it will work if you do proper substitutions, have the child go to the table, stop, the numbers can be checked off in the book, and in the game we go, and we move on. And it's a very simple process.
And you need you need a scorekeeper, first of all. I mean, I know a lot of teams do not do that, particularly if they're the visiting team. If there's only one scorebook, whatever that scorebook says goes. So I encourage everybody always to have a scorekeeper for their game. All right, let's move on to something maybe even more fun. The famous lopsided score rule. I mean, this is going to happen, and it happened way too often. And I think the problem with the lopsided score rule, which essentially said you cannot win a game by more than X number of points based on your grade. Right? It sounded really good until you saw what happened in games where teams were, you know, I can only win by 29, so when it's 28, you know, I'm going to play keep away. I'm going to bounce the ball off my leg and make it go out of bounds and make the other team look completely foolish. This had exactly the opposite effect than it was intended. There was more embarrassment in the tactics that teams took to avoid going over the score than to just lose by 35 points. So we're going to stop that. So here's the deal. After halftime of a game, if at any time the score margin exceeds the lopsided score limit, and I hesitate to even calling it lopsided score, but it's what we've always had. That's 30 points 7th and 8th, 25 points at 5th and 6th, or 20 points in the 3rd and 4th. We are considering that basically, if you built a lead like that after halftime, it's an insurmountable lead, game over, right, in terms of declaring a winner, right? The game's over at that point. We're not going to then tell, I got to try it now, I'm up by, I got to try to work that back. I've seen teams score in the other basket just to, you know, to eliminate or reduce the score. The game will be completed to a normal end. And I say it's a normal end, but it's not quite normal the way you get there. We will, at that point, revert to a running clock, except for foul shots and timeouts when this occurs. There'll be no pressure defense by either team, right? The game is decided. No point in pressure from either team at that point. And the expectation is that the coaches make this a good experience for the kids for the rest of the game and make it somewhat competitive. You might agree on how you're going to do that. You know, if you're the leading team at that point, you don't have to worry, or I'm going to put my subs in now and the other team's going to press me and they're going to come back. Right? None of that can happen. So the idea is to enhance the competition to the end of the game, even though, right, it's decided. And I said, we don't like it in CYO, that I'm much better than you and I beat you by 30 points, but the reality is it happens. We're trying to recognize that and make it as painless as possible. Important note at the bottom. Because you know, as soon as I tell this to anybody, they say, well, you know what's going to happen, right? Now, the strong teams are going to say there's no lopsided score rule. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to press, I'm going to do everything I can, I'm going to run that score up, and you know, at halftime, I'm going to be up by 30 points, and I'm the winner. And yeah, you can do that. You can do that. However, that may very well be considered unsportsmanlike conduct. Even though we don't have a lopsided score report anymore to fill that out, if you as a coach feel that the other team has, you know, they basically destroyed me in order to get to that end, all right, unsportsmanlike conduct comes with a suspension for the coach. 2 times you're done for the season. So I advise that is not the way that you want to operate here. That's in either building the lead or after the game is decided, either continuing to pressure or you know, whatever might happen in the game. Again, expectation here, we want to make it more competitive. We want to take all the shenanigans out about trying to keep it under a certain score because it just didn't work and made no sense. We good on that? Eric?
I'm assuming for like point differential playoff seeding purposes, once you hit that number, that's the score differential for the game, so a team can try to win by 50 to get the 50-point win.
Yes, it's not on here, but yes, whatever the score is at the point in time you've achieved that 25 or 30, that's the final score that gets logged in the book and the website. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
It says after halftime. Does that mean at halftime it's 30, or is it once the third quarter?
We said once the third quarter starts, but once the third quarter starts, I guess if you're up that much, it's basically at halftime and beyond, yeah.
If you're up by 30 days to the third quarter.
It would, as soon as you hit the point of I'm up by 30. Now, if you go up by 30 in the second quarter, right? Maybe you're going to come back a little bit. You make it, you cut it down to 22. Well, it's only it's at any point after halftime that you hit 30 points, or 25 or 20, depending on your level. That's the point where we say, hey, this will help also speed up, the games, which become meaningless at that point. And I think most important, all of the tactics that people use to reduce those score margins will no longer be required. The score, yeah, I mean, the score is going to dictate that. The scorekeepers will know. They don't even really need to come together, but I think what we also want to avoid is making a big deal about it. Well, it's 25 points. You guys now lost the game. You guys, we don't need to do that, right? The point is to let the kids continue to play, but the coaches will understand that. The scorekeepers will understand that. If I hit that, that's it. Again, this opens up, and I hope it doesn't happen, where people are running up scores, and there's no penalty anymore. I'd argue that when we had lopsided score rule, we never had much of a penalty because it was almost unenforceable. Because what happened when we had went over 30 points? Well, there was a reason, or this happened, or this happened. It just was unenforceable and wasn't happening. Yeah, Jerry.
Vic, didn't we just want everybody to just stop keeping score? Don't put any more points on the board. When it hits 30,
oh, yeah, right.
it's done.
Yeah.
Don't play the game and don't add any points to the board.
Okay. All right, period time. So, all right, so the change here, no change at 7th, 8th grade, still be 8-minute quarters. 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th going to a 7-minute quarter. This does not change the stoppage of everything. We stop on all whistles, except for what we just talked about in the lopsided score games. We stop on every whistle. We're just reducing the period length for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th by a minute. And then overtime periods are now 2 minutes across the board. And I said as a note in here, if we get into a situation because of COVID that we have to, make sure games end in an hour so we can get the next team in. We've entertained things like, stopping play at some point. Some of this timing may have to change as a result of that, but we don't envision that at this point in time. Next. All right, this one's easy. Free throws, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's the same as it always was. I put it on here just so you had it as a point of reference. Shooter can't cross over the foul line on a shot attempt, and players on the lane go in on the shot attempt. All right, doesn't have to wait for it to hit. 3rd and 4th grade. The modification has not changed in terms of the shot attempt. So we say that the shooter must start the free throw with at least 1 foot behind or touching the foul line. All right, the momentum can carry them over so they can end that shot, in the lane. However, they cannot be the first person to touch the ball after it comes down. The change here is that we always said, hey, 3rd and 4th could only enter the lane after the ball hit the rim. Now we're making it consistent for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th that players in the lane can enter on the shot attempt. Okay? All right, next up. All right, pressure defense. Now, this is one, and when we get into it, you'll recall some of the instances we had where there's, you can press, 5th and 6th, I can't press in the back court. I got to run back with my hands down. And if you touch it, that we might get a violation call. Here's the rule now, and that some of this is clarification and some of it is change. Just first is clarification. How do we define you're defending the backcourt? We say, well, backcourt defense is defined by the position of the ball. So when the basketball crosses the vertical plane of the half-court line, right, the ball That's when backcourt defense, with the inability to have backcourt defense ends. All right, it's not like in backcourt where I have to have my 2 feet and the ball over the line. So the backcourt rules stay the same in terms of a violation for the offensive team, but the rule for backcourt defense is defined by position of the ball. What we're also trying to end, because you've seen it, the coaches on the line say, look, he came within 2 feet, he's playing defense, technical foul, technical foul. Well, we don't want to do that. Most of the violations here are not blatant, they're not intentional. They're a kid, going for a rebound or instinctively going after a ball. We don't want to penalize that and stop the game for that. So we're saying the backcourt pressure defense will only be called when the violation is blatant and intentional, or it results in a turnover for the offensive team. So, no harm, no foul here. That is a change. I think a lot of officials called it that way anyway, but we had coaches screaming about it, so that's the way we're going to do it going forward. Backcourt defense, 7th and 8th, is allowed any time in the game unless that team is leading by more than 15 points. We've eliminated, you had referees doing the math. You have to stop at 20, but you can put it back on at 15. You're trying to figure that out. No, it's 15 points, right? So it's very, very simple. If you're more than 15 points, you cannot press. If you're under 15, you can. That's it. 5th and 6th, only in the last 4 minutes of the game, and overtime, but not if the team is leading by more than 15 points. Okay, 3rd and 4th. 3rd and 4th is always a trip, particularly when we get into the last couple of minutes. So a lot of this, again, is just clarification. So backcourt defense. Right? We do have some backcourt defense, because if you think about the press rules, backcourt defense by a team is allowed in the last minute of the game and of overtime. Right? We're saying unless the team is leading by 10 points. We also said that half-court defense, so that's in between the 3-point line and center court, that's allowed by a team in the last 2 minutes of the game and overtime. Right? And that's what we've had before. At all other times in the game, a team may not play defense until the offense advances the ball beyond the 3-point line. And again, be consistent with what we as well. What does that mean? Well, can I lean over the line if a defender is behind the line? What if the guy's foot touches the line? To be very clear on it. This is again going to be defined by the position of the ball. So once the ball crosses the vertical plane of the 3-point arc, all bets are off. Defense can then play defense and play defense from that point forward on at any place on the court. So if you go out, you go into the 3-point and then come back out, defense can come out. Once you break the line, defense can be played. And again, same thing. If it's only blatant intentional, if it results in a turnover, there'll be something called. If there's no harm here, we will not call it. Also, the requirement for the defense at 3rd and 4th to drop below the foul line extended if the lead is over 10 points, we're getting rid of. Again, talking to coaches, what we did was move all the defenders into the lane, which is pretty much for 3rd and 4th the only place where you could shoot. So it ended up taking away the opportunity to score. So we've taken that off, and we'll use this same rule all the way throughout.
Okay, do they still have the 15 seconds before?
We're going to talk about that. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Right here. All right. That's why next one, Tom. That's why we call it a 10-second violation. So 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th, normal high school rules in effect allow the offense 10 seconds to move the ball into the front court. No change there. All right, for 3rd and 4th, we do have a 10-second rule in effect for the last 2 minutes of regulation and overtime. And that's allowing, because we allow pressure defense, we need to have them advance the ball. At all other times prior, offense is allowed 15 seconds to advance the ball beyond the 3-point arc. And same as we talked about before with the pressure defense. The offensive team will have successfully advanced the ball once the ball has crossed the vertical plane of the 3-point arc. So the same rule for the violation as we have for playing defense. Same trigger, makes a heck of a lot of sense. Okay, Tom, next. All right, field goal attempts, and this is a natural outgrowth of what we talked about, the pressure defense. So they have to be aligned, and you'll see what I mean. All right, 7th and 8th grade field goal attempts allowed from anywhere on the court. Right, you can shoot from anywhere. Shots beyond the 3-point arc count for 3 points. No change. 5th and 6th. Field goal attempts allowed from anywhere on the court in the last 4 minutes in overtime, right? Because I could play defense anywhere at that point. But prior to that, the offense may only attempt a field goal from the front court. Shots beyond the 3-point arc count for 3 points. So this means you technically cannot shoot, from the backcourt at the end of the first quarter to score, because we said, hey, defense, you can't play defense there. Therefore, we can't allow a shot attempt there either. So this kind of plays along with what we talked about before. Same for 3rd and 4th. We don't have to go through all of it, but in the last minute, you can attempt a shot from anywhere because we're allowing full court pressure. In the last 2 minutes, you can shoot anywhere in the front court because they're allowing half court pressure. Up to that point, you can only attempt a field goal once you've advanced the ball past the 3-point arc, right? If you can't play defense, we can't let somebody sit out there and just take shots. And in any event, no matter where you shoot from at 3rd and 4th grade, the goal counts for 2 points. We don't have 3-pointers there. Okay, the last two. All right, this is not so much a rule, but a change in the way that we do playoffs. And, many of you experience, everybody makes the playoffs. All right, that's really nice. So then we have an 8-team division, and you get the schedule. Is undefeated team number 1 plays the team number 8 that hasn't won a game all year, and either comes and gets crushed or says, I'd rather not do that. I'm not going to show up. Sometimes they told us early on I'm going to opt out. Sometimes we found out a couple of days before, I'm not going to play. It sends playoffs into havoc, and it kind of reduces the competition that we want to have, particularly at the end of the year. Last thing you want is for your team that didn't win a game all year to go play the undefeated team and lose 22-0 at the 3rd and 4th level and sit on that for the rest of the off season. So I put one example here, but you'll get the idea. So we're going to modify the way that we do playoffs. The higher seeded teams will have byes in the first round, and this is an example for an 8-team division, which is a typical one. So what would happen is Team 8, instead of playing Team 1, Seed 1, would play Seed 5. Now that may still be, a non-competitive game, but a heck of a lot better chance it's competitive than when 8 was playing 1. And 6 will play 7, which should be, if the regular season dictates what happens in the playoffs, should be a pretty good game. 3 and 4 have byes, 1 and 2 have byes. You can see the way the next round, 5-8 plays Seed 3, 6-7 would play 4, Seed 1 and 2 essentially has a bye to the semifinal. The winners play, and then we have our championship. So this is a variation. I personally have used it when I did CYO over in Hudson County, and it seemed to work very well. There will be no opt-outs in the playoffs anymore. Right? The reason we're doing this is to get some stability to the schedule. You're always asking, in the beginning of February, well, I need to see the playoff schedule. This will allow us to do a playoff schedule a lot earlier. We may not know exactly the teams that are in, but we always had to wait. Are you opting in or are you going to play? And we waited till everybody decided how to modify the brackets. And then in the end, a lot of teams didn't show up anyway when they saw who their opponent was. So this should make your early round games competitive, and I hope it makes for a much better experience for everybody. One more, there's our last one. All right, and this, again, not a rule, but more a process. There were a lot of different processes for a while. Lopsided score. We had game protests. I didn't like the official for that game. Someone was unsportsmanlike conduct. Nobody quite knew how to report, what to report, and what to do. So what we will have in place, and more details will come on it, there'll be a single and efficient way for reporting problems to the CYO. And I said, more to come on it, but the idea would be that, coaches will not initiate this with the CYO. Coaches will talk to program directors. Program directors will make a determination of whether or not that will be forwarded to the CYO. And so the CYO, we want to hear from you, not from every coach that's out there. You obviously, within 24 hours, provide the details around the incident. Somebody in CYO will be designated as the receiver for that. May ask some questions, do some review. The idea is to turn around a resolution within 48 hours of reporting. Again, not a rule change, I think just cleans up process and eliminates a lot of these different things that we had going all over the place. One way that I said that will be for violations of the all play rule, unsportsmanlike conduct, game protests. I know there's a typo in there, ignore about the align the rules as copy and pasting. But again, more to come with that when we get closer to the season. That's the rule changes that we envision for this year. Again, as a coach and a program director, I think it's a big improvement from where we were. I know, you can find a lot of issues with some of them. I mean, there always will be, and there will be people that will figure out a way, to work around these as well, which will force us to modify them again. But I think it makes for a more competitive CYO. It's, I think, a little bit easier to administer. And again, I hope it reflects things that you have been telling us over the last 3 years since I've been involved. Any last question on this? We're going to go to the calendar. Yeah.
Just real quick, no limits on fans, that's up to the home facility and...
I think, as Tom said, right, we have not issued any guidance yet on games and what will happen in games. It's certainly not part of the rules, but that'll come later on. Okay, I'll be around, so anything you want to discuss on these later on, I'm happy to. So Jerry's going to take you now through the tentative calendar for the year.
Thanks, Dick. Thanks everyone for coming out. I know I'm the last speaker between you and the cannoli, so we're going to go quickly through this. Okay, Tom? All right, so here we are. It is the 21st of September. We have 6 weeks between now and that first date there of the team commitment form. And what that form is that your evaluation form. How many teams you're going to put in, what brackets. So then that gives us some time to do.
Jerry, I'm sorry, just for everyone taking pictures, this is already up on the CYO page. All these slides, so you don't have to worry about taking pictures of this.
Right. You can download it as soon as you go home or on your phone right now. So that team commitment form is due on the 4th. Okay, that's going to come into to the county directors, right? So Essex County, everybody will turn their stuff into me, whether they drop it at my house, email it to me, scan it, whatever. So whatever county you're in, you're going to send that to that person so that we can start to sit down and start to fill out who we're going to have in those different divisions, okay? So then, between the 9th and the 11th of November, you're going to start turning in your rosters, your coaches' contact information, your checks, how much money it's going to cost us. So you're thinking ahead there. So now, between now and then, these next 6 weeks, you've got to do registration, get an idea of how many teams you're going to have, who's going to be on your coaching staff, because you've got a lot of things to do in the background. When you're thinking about your coaches also, start planning in your head, who needs PGC? You've got to get, as Tom said, you've got to get those copies of those COVID cards, their vaccination cards, to have it on file. So you've got a lot of homework to do before you start there. So those things will be due between the 9th and the 11th, and we'll give you a little guidance on where we're going to drop those off and whatnot between each county right there. Around the 13th of November, we're going to have the scheduling meetings, county by county. So Essex County will come over to me in St. Joe's. We'll do it like we did the last time. We'll be in the room, and however they do it. So whatever county is going to do that, that county director will be in contact with your ADs. And that's where the ADs come in and do it. You're not going to bring all your coaches in. If you have 19 teams, you're not bringing in 19 coaches to the scheduling meeting. You're just bringing 1 or 2 representatives to get that done there. So we're anticipating the regular season to start the weekend of the 3rd of December, right? Thanksgiving's on a Thursday. It's the last Thursday of the month in November there, about the 20-something. And so not Thanksgiving weekend, but the weekend after that we can start, okay? So the way it looks, we work backwards. Because if you look at the bottom of that, this is the year we want to start to have a tournament of champions. We want to have a tournament where all 4 counties get together and we determine a champion. So we work backwards. So by starting on that first weekend in November the 3rd, that gives us 12 weekends or 12 weeks to play a season. So we're going to play anywhere from 12 to 14 games, depending on the size of your division. We'll figure that out, and so we can get all those games in there. So, so the regular season will start on that weekend, and then the regular season is going to end the 27th of February. So that gives us, like I said, those 12 weeks to get in the season. If you take out Christmas week, you know, we're not going to play because Christmas is on a Saturday this year. So you're not going to play on Christmas weekend. You might not play on January 1st, but you're probably going to schedule games on January 2nd, because the kids go back to school on the 3rd. So, so look at that. So when you're looking at those dates there, when the regular season ends, we talked about having that last weekend open for games, for makeups or anything like that. Keep that in mind. When you start thinking about your schedule and these dates, and you talked about it a little bit before, get those school calendars. Okay? When's the school play? You know when confirmation is, you know when First Communion is, you know those things that are happening, get those things. When's the school play? When's the Christmas concert? All those things, get those things on your calendar so you don't have to schedule games. When you come in on the 13th that weekend, you're not scheduling a game for someone you know they're not going to be around. Even ask those silly questions of your team. Who belongs to? I always had a team with Girl Scouts, always slept over at the Liberty Science Center. Always messed up a Friday or a Saturday for us. So ask those questions of that. No other things. Catholic school, Sunday is January 30th. Okay? The Super Bowl is February 6th. Okay? So you know that game is going to be played. It's already scheduled, February 6th. Registration for high school, so for those 8th graders, is always Saturday, February 5th. So if those kids go with their parents to go sign their $1,000 check, you know, get that way. You have President's Day, you know, it's the 21st. You have other things that way. So look at those calendar dates, and you figure all those things out. We want to start the playoffs on Thursday, the 3rd of March, because we want to use March as our date. So depending on how big the brackets are, you know, it might be weekend games, it's going to be weekday games, you know, how we break out that out. But we want to have the county, like I said, the county finals on the 6th, what do I want to say there? On the 9th, the week before that. So if we have the county finals on the 12th and the 13th, that weekend there, then the following weekend we can have the Final Four of the Tournament of Champions. That place is going to be determined, you know, just like the county finals will be determined at a place. You know, I know in Essex County we try to use Mount St. Dominic's, and you know in Union County we always use Union Catholic, so we're trying to look at those places. So where we play the Tournament of Champions will be determined. So think about all those things. We'll give you more dates as we're getting along here, but those are the dates we're aiming for, especially with the paperwork. Get that paperwork early on, get that going. So you have 6 weeks from tomorrow before the first thing is due with your team commitment forms. How many teams you're going to have and how you're going to evaluate them. And then the week after that would be you turning in your rosters. So you're getting your rosters approved, getting your roster signed off by your principal, your pastor, your DRE, whoever that person is or persons, and having all that signed. That all gets turned in. You're going to have to turn that into, come to the county directors for that time, or everything going to come directly to you for the...
And we'll figure it out. We'll announce how we'll do it. We want to make it as easy as possible.
Right. So that's in a nutshell. It looks kind of compact. It gets a lot of things in a little bit of time. But obviously, we're trying to get things in because we're trying to get it over with before spring sports start. I know right now you all say, oh, we're just starting volleyball and cross country and the kids are doing other things, soccer and whatnot. But it gets going. It takes a lot of planning to do this. When the league has grown so much that we have to plan and give us some time to get things done. And then by having the scheduling meeting on in the middle of there, or the 19th, or the 13th, excuse me, that gives us time to scrub that schedule, make sure it's right, and then put it on the website. Because I got an email just now as I was sitting here. You know what day is the first game? I just started registration the other day. I got the first question. What day is the first game? So I got it. So I'm sure you're going to get the same questions. Any questions, Dave?
Jared, 2 things. All coaches need to be Rutgers certified.
Correct.
So it's a one and done, 3-hour class. So any of your new coaches, they have to go on. Youth Sports Research Council.
Excuse me, Dave.
Yeah.
You don't have to be Rutgers certified anymore. The diocese
The diocese says it's not. The insurance people said it doesn't have any bearing on our insurance or anything else like that. That there's no more, sorry. There's,
Okay, that's right.
but, I will encourage you, I did bring it in one of the Zoom calls with the fall sports. Rutgers is actually reformatting their entire system. If you remember, when Gary worked here with us, we actually sent him to Atlantic City for 2 days to get training for the Rutgers certification. That's where they held it, in Atlantic City. No shot, right? So, but Rutgers has been announced to go on their website. I don't know if they have it completely formulated yet. I got an email about it because I'm on the list as well. Rutgers is going to go out now, make it offering it online.
That'll be done next year.
Okay, so I would get Rutgers. If you could sign up for a Rutgers class, I would get it. Rutgers is good for life. It's a great tool to have. It's been held up in several state Supreme Courts as a fundamental tool learning for coaches. So although the Archdiocese, we do prefer if you have it, but it's not required any longer. It does no bearing on our insurance or anything like that, but it's a good protection for yourself. You should definitely get that. And of course, I hope I don't have to say, you gotta make sure everybody has PGC.
So, second point on that. So PCG, not only going through the class, they've got to make sure it's a 5-year certification, so you're good. You need to have a background check completed, you need to have your volunteer form completed, and a code of ethics form completed in order to meet the requirements for protecting God's children. 5 years for the certification and the background check. The volunteer form and the code of ethics is needed to be done every year and turned into either your LSC PC school or the parish. Otherwise, that coach cannot coach.
That includes all coaches, assistant coaches.
Exactly.
Anybody that's on the bench or in the gym with a kid needs to have PGC.
Exactly.
Okay? And that's one of the reasons why you can't say, well, can I just take this parent to sit on the bench during the game? Technically, no. You can't do that.
Are listed in place?
Yes, they're all on our website, right? The PGC guidelines are on the website. And
Not on our website.
and they're in the handbook as well. They're in the athletic handbook. Eileen.
Are we following, are the coaches have to follow the same mandates that we're following in the schools, that they have to be vaccinated by October 18th or something?
Yes, that was in one of the earlier slides.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yes, every coach has to be vaccinated. That's why you need to get a copy of that card and keep that on file with whoever you do that. If it's in the parish, I'm going to just give it to my, who happens to be my daughter. She's the safe environment coordinator. Yes.
Right now, is there any guidance whatsoever with regard to fans? And secondly, is it still 2 referees and the price is the same, or what happens?
It's 2 referees per game, right? Each team will pay a referee, and we say, and we haven't determined the price.
No, we plan on having a meeting with the 4 assigners. They've already broached us already with concerns about cost. Many other organizations are paying more, but we're hoping that when we speak with them, if you guys know any of the assigners, don't tell them, don't show them our cards yet. But we're hoping that with the drop in minutes and how the clock's going to run with lopsided scores and things like that, that they'll feel more comfortable that the game will move along in a better fashion. So, does anybody have any more questions on things? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, you go.
Is there any change to the rules for the age of assistant coaches, like high school kids?
It's still you have to be 21 to sit on the bench.
No.
Could you have a high school coach helping you? Yes, a child in high school. However, the problem is they're a lot more like you can't even give them the title of coach.
Right.
Okay, like an 18-year-old and up. Okay, that's in the handbook as well. They can't. The problem is if you leave them alone, right? So you're running late. You got stuck in traffic coming home from the city on the way to work, on the way home from work, and you tell Tom, hey Tom, open up, let the kids in. Right there is a violation, right? Because now he's been left with that child. So that person, that young adult, can help you. They cannot sit on the bench until they're 21, unfortunately. But they can certainly help you, but they can never be left alone. If all of a sudden you don't feel good, a coach doesn't feel good, or just needs to go home, there's an emergency. Practice, if it's just you and that person, practice needs to end and everybody goes home.
No, I knew they wouldn't be allowed to coach, but I was thinking of volunteer hours,
Yeah.
service hours, getting more kids involved in the
Sure.
CYO at an
Yep.
early age. But they're allowed to do everything except they can't get them on the bench.
If they're under 21, they cannot sit on the bench. Okay?
Oh.
Two quick questions. You said 12-week season, expectation is 12 games per team.
It'll be depending on each county and number of teams that are in each bracket, and then we'll come to determination, but you're not gonna, we don't wanna go over too much. We decided, we're trying to keep it in that under 14 regular season games. That way you can budget your money, you know what you're gonna do. We don't know what the referee fee is right now, whoever just asked that, but you can kind of think in your head, we're gonna play a maximum of 14 games, which is say it's still at the last fee, it's $45, that's what it's gonna cost, so.
This may be a question for Tom. Tom, are there any COVID-specific disclosures that we have to provide to parents during the registration process over and above
No.
other things?
No, I don't, we don't have any.
Okay, so
If
the
you remember,
process stays the same as it's been.
right, when we had discussed COVID protocols before, we have that generic, comes from the CDC, it's like 8 or 9 questions, check, 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 check. The high schools were using it too, the NJSIA had it as well. As a matter of fact, unless something has changed, I don't know how many of you are at the high school level as a coach, I've been on all the websites, the NFHS, the NJSIAA, they have not updated anything about the player safety of COVID since last spring. So there's nothing new out there to say. I will say a couple of things, if nobody has any questions about let me just go on a couple of, I'm trying not to get ahead of ourselves. I could definitely talk about some of the COVID stuff, okay? Where I think we're going to be, but I just don't know. Just like with the volleyball. I told some of this stuff you saw up here, I don't know if I came back to that page, we put out some of it, and we now have talked about matches. So if you're asking me today what's going to happen with fans, there's a lot of things that are going on. One, you're going to find out a lot yourself in the next couple of days. If you didn't already have that prelim meeting yet with your pastor or principal, whatever the case may be, okay? They're going to have a lot of concerns. You're going to come back with questions. I would suggest that, you try to have those questions ready in hand. Like, for example, the stuff I talked about sanitizing. They say, what are you going to do about sanitizing? Well, we're going to buy some of this stuff from this company, and we're going to buy our own sprayer. It's $300, and we can get a 5-gallon drum, whatever the case may be. Again, or your own sanitizing. A bottle of Lysol, you're going to wipe down all the knobs. You're going to need to definitely make them. Eileen, right here.
Well, we have, and what we do this summer is that we keep our foggers and they're always filled. And we keep them in the kitchen right inside our gym. So after like summer league, after every game, we have that for,
Eileen is a school principal, although she's not speaking on behalf of all the principals, but she's also the program, talk about her job, she's the principal, and she's also...
Interim.
Oh, okay. You're a principal, on tape, I'm saying you're a
We
principal.
have Foggersville, we have,
Yeah,
right now we have
right.
a basketball
So-
rental, and they just come in, we train them, they use it, they pay a fee to help us support the cost of the fogging, solution, and it's just simple, and everyone does take them.
Right. So these are some of the questions, we have a principal in-house here with us. So these are things that you want to make sure you have some answers for, because they may come at you with those questions. Your pastor and principal may say, and this has already been coming up, but think about it, we have to think about what's going to happen for the whole season. So your principal may come to you and say, okay, so listen, or you may come to this conclusion, pastor, whatever. All right, guess, okay, yeah, we're going to let you have basketball. However, you can still have your home games. However, we're not allowing any fans in. That's going to be a program's decision, okay? As of right now, I'm following the state guidelines. We're doing the same thing in our very similar in our parishes, any other things that we do. Nothing else has been issued from the diocese about anything different, about the quantities and so forth and this. Even the governor himself, he's been asked at if you watch his Monday, and I was doing Mondays and Wednesdays, if you watched I watched his Monday meeting 2 weeks ago, somebody asked him, Governor, how could you say you're not going to change outdoor or indoor regulations? Did you see the Giant game? Besides the fact that they lost, there's 80,000 people, and you had to go looking hard to find someone with a mask. The governor said, yes, I know, I was there for the first half. I'm sure he was sitting in the States box, but he said, yes, you're right, but no, I'm not. Weddings are weddings, this is that. We continue to follow the science. He turned to the woman who needs no introduction, Judy Persicelli, and asked her the same questions. Now that's today. So a lot of things are going to change. My gut is telling me that if we would put it on paper today, like we're doing with volleyball, everybody who comes in is going to have to wear a mask. Everybody, vaccinated or not. You're going to have to, if we have spectators, you're going to have to wear a mask. Everybody is going to have to wear a mask. Okay? The officials will drop theirs, the one official for volleyball, in this case, basketball, like we did in the summer league, and it says that this is what they can do as of today. If you drop their mask, if the referee wants to, or leave it up, players can either take them off or leave it on, whatever the case they want to do, but everybody else is going to have their mask on. We also did something different in the summer league, right? Only allowed 2, right? We then put in that you only allow 2 per player, two spectators in with a player. But we were in a different place when we had the summer league going on than where we are today, right? So, but again, we weren't told to do that. We just did it to be cautious, to make parents, our parish leaders, our principals, you name it, we wanted to make them feel safe, okay? So we probably, if we were going to have open basketball was starting tonight, first nights of games, I'm probably going to tell you that we're going to be at that point. We're going to be all wearing masks. Will we come to a certain number and regulate it to a certain number? Possibly. You may come and say to me, look, that's all we're allowing in our gym. We're going to, that's your home court, that's your place. We're not going to, the CYO's not going to say, no, you have to open it up to everybody, okay? So these are things that may be the conditions imposed upon you and your individual programs that would make your principal or pastor feel safer about what you're about to venture out and do. And it keeps us, we're trying to be proactive in those regards. So,
if each school has a different regulation, or parish, is that something you would help facilitate? Like, the Pines Academy only allows 1 parent in so that everybody knows.
yeah, we're gonna have to communicate that to each other and let each other know. You may be faced too with this. Your principal may say, or your pastor, depending on the situation, you're gonna hate to keep always saying that. Yeah, you can have basketball. Yep, you can have the gym every night. However, I'm not allowing any home games. That can happen. I'm not allowing any home games. Now, could you imagine if everybody in this room said the same thing? You get to a point where, and I've already had with the volleyball, we're experiencing it, not so much with cross country because that's all outside, obviously. But with volleyball, you're getting some, and I can understand it. Some folks are starting to say, we haven't even served the ball. They're doing their scheduling in the upcoming days. I hope to get started by next Saturday and Sunday. Some of the programs are saying, well, I'm not going to host everybody. I mean, if half the league, can't host any games, what the hell are we going to do? We're going to, what are we, how are we going to get past this? That's going to be a real reality that may hit us, and we're going to have to address it and see where we go. And, as beautiful as it is, I think I think even if I had a 90 seat stadium here, indoor basketball court, I don't think many of you want to come to Kearney and play. No matter how much gorgeous it is. But even that can only handle so much as well. So, these are things that we're going to be challenged, and that's why somebody asked about games before. I believe we did modify it in the book about expectation would be for varsity, no more than 14 plus a first round of playoff. Don't quote me on that, I'll double check that. But we did say, like we're doing now with volleyball, we're normally, okay, yeah, all right, there's 8 teams, so there's 7 teams to play in the girls' varsity division in this county. We're going to play each other twice, home and away, blah, blah, blah. We're not doing that. We're playing each other like once. And then maybe what we're doing is, they'll learn more at the scheduling meetings in the next couple of days, is we're saying, okay, so you're going to play everybody once, that's 7 games, and then pick 3 other teams that you're going to play once. That way you get a 10 game. I think if we could get 10 games in, or whatever the basketball would be, it will just be a godsend. It would just be a gift that we were able to even get it going. Like in summer league, we only played each other once. If you wanted to play each other again a second time, you could. We weren't going to stop you, but we only played each other once. JV girls, I think, JV girls, only played, I think, 6 matches, 5 or 6. Varsity only played 9 games, right? And we limited it when we were playing. We may find ourselves in that position, that we're going to limit ourselves, that we're not going to play during the week. We're not going to. So again, we're trying to lessen our exposure to having a problem. Yes, John.
Quick question. For registration, can we ask through HIPAA laws if the student is vaccinated or not? Are we allowed to ask that or not?
You're not allowed to ask that in school, were you? No.
Their side said that if they give it up, you can put that in their medical file, but we're only allowed to ask.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, because even at the Archdiocese right now, they're not asking us as employees.
It was something that was sent to lawyers, because we actually questioned that in terms of like having that information for quarantine, so that can go to scrambling in the last moment, but they never got back.
Yeah. Yes.
Are the referees required to be vaccinated?
Not under this.
Under any?
Not,
I mean, they're gonna be, everybody else in that room has to be vaccinated if they can be.
yeah, they have,
The refs are gonna be walking around without masks.
only during the game. When the game starts, they can lower it if they have to.
Right, so therein lies, are they required to be vaccinated?
No,
Do they have to? Why not?
they're not being required to be vaccinated now at the state level.
Yeah, but they're gonna be, that's a problem.
But you got referees in gymnasiums right now doing during girls volleyballs that is going on, and they have the mask on and they can lower if they want, or they can leave it up when the game is going on. When it's in the game.
I understand, it's not a program necessarily, but it's just why.
Well,
Like, you've got every school administrator, anybody who comes in touch with the kid, essentially a referee, when there's active stuff going on. It's not really part of the rest. That's a shame.
right.
That's not your fault, I'm just saying that's your
Yeah, yeah. You know, I think if we were to, mandate all referees had to be vaccinated to come into the gym, I don't think we'd be having a lot of games. I hope they're all maybe vaccinated for their own sake, but they're not even being mandated by the NJSIA to be vaccinated. So, and that's why, go back to the executive order, like the plumber, some referees may only come to your gym once. Maybe they'll come twice, but they'll come on a Monday, and then you won't maybe see that referee again for another 3-4 weeks, or you may see them at another gym. That's why under this, they said those folks don't fall under this mandate from the governor.
What happens if they get caught? How do they get
Well, we'll do what we did in February or March of 2020. Notify the teams that where he or she was, and that we just found out this referee has been tested positive for COVID, and
They have to tell them.
If they're the ones helping and pumping
I
around the
think they
kids,
can tell us.
how are they not vaccinated?
Well, it's a state law, it's not their fault.
Yeah, but you're telling the coach who's just standing there to be vaccinated, and you're not having the ref running back and forth with the players. Mind you, 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th are under the age to be vaccinated. That's a whole contradiction there.
Right.
I think it's fair to say, otherwise, supervised parents, that that is the case, so that could be dangerous to whether some parents elect to
Or at least get a negative test before they come, but the coaches, they're not vaccinated, they need to have a PCR.
Listen, I don't want to play the what if game. I would think that if according to the executive order, if that's not even being enforced at our high school level, public or Catholic. I mean, I talked to a bunch of referees that were at some Catholic high school volleyball games. Even fans aren't even being. It depends on the location. There were fans in there without mask on, fans on there with masks on. You know, we're going over. We're just taking it to the next level. Les, Leon?
Yeah, just so quick, that's starting with 18, first of all, October 18th.
Hey, what's up? What's the website? All this is
Start.
NorcoYM.com. www.norc, like the city of Newark, OYM.com. And then you'll just click on the athletic page.
While they're doing remote work away from people, they're not required to vaccinate. Volunteers consistently.
www.norcoym.com.
That might change after the 18th.
this whole presentation, this video will be up there tomorrow. So, okay? Yes, Office Youth Ministry.
In this, during school, all school students and faculty must wear a mask during the school hour days.
I thought it was if they were on school property. That's not the case in the school gym, like extracurricular stuff going on. I thought you had to.
I would think they are. I would think they are. I would think they are.
But outdoor,
Yeah.
like for outdoor enrichment.
Right, but I was
You have
saying-
aftercare? But the aftercare, well, yeah, they're all masked even during aftercare.
Are you just saying high school kids, some staff were not wearing masks?
That's right.
That's
Because it's not during school hours. I don't know. Well, I'm only telling you what I'm telling you. I haven't been to a high school girls volleyball game yet. I only know what I'm being told.
I'm
That,
just saying, I
yeah.
think knowing those rules would also help us direct the programming. If we have to check them out, if they're available programs.
Yeah.
But it should be like, you have to have a mask on if you're on school property, period. I don't care if you're at the parking lot, I don't care if you're in the gym, I don't care if you're in the auditorium. If you're here on our property, you need to have a mask on, period.
Right.
Whether, I mean, except for go to the kids, because they're going to
Well, listen, there's nothing stopping us from telling the officials they don't have to wear a mask. Well, they're going to come in with a mask. You know, if we're going to be, if we, right now, we're saying even in our falls, with volleyball, everybody must be wearing a mask. So even practice and will be for games as well as matches. So we could just say to tell the officials, you need to leave that mask on. But you know, it's hard to tell them that we're going to tell them. I just, you know, unless I'm told otherwise, you know, from my superiors or from the state, that every official who comes in, and he or she's only coming there for one game, and you may never see them again. You know, I mean, one thing for sure, I don't know if there's even officials in here, so I don't want to put you on the spot. But most of the officials I know, and I know quite a few, they track every time they go somewhere. Because once they hit over $500 at a location, or $599, they're worried about them paying taxes. So they don't mind going to your gym a few times. They wait till they don't go over that limit, because then they won't get a 1099 from you. So your chances of seeing that same person, unless they live around the corner from you, you don't really see them. So what I'm saying is that falls under that order. You know, it's almost like the plumber who came into the school once, and well, I'm just.
The plumber is going like in his desk. Often, thankfully, our instruction players, it's incredibly different. I find it problematic that the referees were going to be around kids of the age who cannot be vaccinated. I find there's a big hole.
Yeah. Well, again,
It's not fair.
we can mandate that they have to wear a mask. We can't mandate. I can tell you, I could be totally wrong here. I can be totally off base. I think if we were to tell the referees that whoever referees a CYO event must be wearing a mask, we're not having any sports.
Well, the challenge is, if I may, the challenge is that the mask won't matter if you want to watch. If they blow the whistle, the child's nearby, the child's getting infection.
You can have electric.
Yeah, some of them had during the height of it all. I mean, listen, I know there's some of you at the high school level. Even during last year, all the high schools had sports. Had sports. They didn't require that the officials had to be vaccinated then. Or we may not have had the vaccination. But even now we have the vaccination, they're not making them have it again.
I know it's not your fault. That's huge. Yeah.
Well, the only thing I can say to that, is one, we will make sure they all have to wear a mask, because we're all going to be wearing masks. That's why I don't want to get in. I was trying to not avoid all this, but because everything is changing as things change, week to week, with the virus, You know, I think at that point, let's just say hypothetically, that the rule is there that everybody has to wear the mask, even the referees throughout the entire match, throughout the entire game, you know, but they're not vaccinated. We don't know, they might be, but if they, let's just say none of them are, God forbid that's the case, but none of them are, and you still have that concern that everyone thinks it's not, well, it's just like the parents that aren't vaccinated are going to come in there wearing a mask. It's really no different.
Yeah, but they're gonna keep their mask on.
Well, let's face it, they're not that far away from all the kids either. The bleachers aren't too far away from all the basketball courts.
Yeah, but you're telling them to keep their mask on, you're not telling officials that they have to keep their mask on.
Well, but we could fix that by telling them that they'll have to wear their masks, you know, and go to electronic whistles, because they had to do that. If I'm not mistaken, if you're a high school referee during the COVID, you had to buy 2 of the electric whistles. So, no? You didn't have to? I thought it was all the whole big thing on there. See on the SAA website? It was optional. Okay. So, right. You haven't gotten any notice about all referees have to be vaccinated. Rich is a state high school referee.
I referee high school.
He's an eyeball.
I opted out January, February. I wasn't vaccinated. I got my vaccination, my second shot in March. I can tell you 95% of the officials that I know that I work with are vaccinated. Reason being, kids are carriers too. So we're just as susceptible as the children. So if you want a referee, I would guarantee you most of these gentlemen are vaccinated. I have a high school schedule that have already scheduled games for the year. I'm vaccinated. They haven't asked me. And like Tom said, it's not a state requirement. But I can guarantee you, most if not all the officials who've been doing it, at least I'm doing it 17, 18 years now, are vaccinated. So to quell any concerns. Again, we're mostly socially distanced during the games. Very rarely are we upon kids. Tie-ups maybe once in a while to break it up and get the ball. But, you know, there's a lot of social distance to the game. We're not directly upon the kids. And we are constantly moving. So, you know, but I understand your concern. And there are kind of conflicting, arguments either way. But just to quell everybody's fears, like I said, I can vouch for most of my partners that I've refereed with. I can pretty much guarantee most, if not all, are vaccinated.
And who knows? We could turn around and enforce the rules that they were using during the winter basketball season. In winter basketball, if any of you have children that play, referee, ball went out of bounds, him and her, they put their hands behind their back. They just blew their whistle, told the kid, go get the ball. They didn't even touch the ball. They didn't even, I think there was a coin toss, just like it is in volleyball. There wasn't a jump ball. It was a coin toss. So there wasn't a jump ball, because that way the referee wouldn't have to touch it. Even when it would go out of bounds, and the player has to, he'd say, go get it, the referee, he'd say, my whistle is when I'm going to start counting. He never even had to hand the ball to them. He never handed it. You shot your foul shot, go get your own rebound. We're not touching it. Right? Right? So,
There's no touch.
right.
That's the other reason why I opted out too. It was crazy.
No. The same as last year, 175 per team. Yeah. Which that fee hasn't been raised very. So, but we will give, more guidance as we get closer that we can provide to you all. So, good luck on your next phase. If you haven't spoken with your principal or pastor, I'm not saying that sarcastically. They have real concerns. They don't want their school to close either. They don't want their school to have to close for any reason. I mean, if everyone's following it, I haven't heard yet about the other counties. I just know, and not even our Catholic schools, not the grammar schools that I've heard of any. But I know that some public schools in Union County, when I say that about Union, I'm just saying nothing up this way yet. Doesn't mean we're not going to be tomorrow. But have some public schools that have to close or whatever, that's a partial shutdown. So, okay? All right, everyone who stayed, thank you so much. There is desserts out, please grab some, or even get a little to-go container. Chef Boris, I'm sure, put out the containers. Get a Scooby snack for that late-night cup of milk. All right, there's cannolis, everything. Everyone grab one.